There we go. Motown Rundown. Today is Thursday, February 29th. This is a leap day, Trent.
It is. I have a
Happy
leap
leap
day
day.
themed segment for us later that I was
Oh,
going to
it's
keep a
awesome.
surprise. No, this is perfect. I have a couple
Cass is back.
questions for you in the spirit of leap day because, I work in local sports talk radio down here. They're always trying to come up with these quirky, witty segments. And today we
Right.
did something about leap day and which team player is going to take a leap. I just got some questions for
Oh,
you at the end of the show. So we'll do that later. But how you doing?
magnificent. I'm good. We're shorthanded today. Just Trent and myself. Wouldn't be the first time we got permission from Ryan Collins to just go ahead and go. It's a very strange in-between time with sports. We're not quite yet to April in the D, but we still have plenty of wings to talk about, Pistons to talk about. The Tigers have begun their spring training, and for whatever reason, it seems like every single day on the radio you're hearing about Lions draft talk, even though we are about 2 months away
Yeah,
still from
you know
that.
what's funny about that, Rabs, is like Brad Holmes kind of echoed this at the combine this week. He's like, guys, we're picking 29th. Like, I don't really, it's not like we're picking the cream of the
Yeah,
crop anymore. I'm just going to pick the best player that I see fit the need. I'm paraphrasing, of course. I'm not reading
yeah.
this for those of you who are listening, but that's exactly how I feel, Rabs. And it's a great feeling that like the Lions are picking 29th. I don't need to read 100 articles about who they should take third overall and that it's Jeff
Yeah.
Okuda. You know what I mean? It's great.
No, it's great because there's no pressure on it, and it's like it's tough because when you hear it's a good thing and it's a I guess it's a catch 22. It's a great thing because it's nice to have the Lions continuously in the media. Like it's not the season ended in week 12. Now we're talking about like losing games, who they're going to take in the top 5 to top 10. But I think people are just so excited about the draft and the offseason and next season, and especially with the draft being in Detroit. But I don't see a necessity to talk about it, but I just hear it every single day on the radio because it is a football town and people love to talk about the Lions. And don't get me wrong, so do we here, obviously. But there's just, I don't see it. I just don't see a need. I don't even know what to say. Like, what do you want from me? Free
Well, here's the
agency?
thing.
What?
Like, I think a beautiful thing about it is on a show like this, Rabs, we don't really have to dedicate a ton of time to the Lions because, quite frankly, like that season's over and it is what it is. We've wrapped it up and we have teams that are actually doing something to talk about, which hasn't really been the case in the 6-year history of the Motown Rundown. The Wings are red hot. The Pistons have actually won a few games. The Tigers are playing spring training. So it feels a little different than maybe, I don't know, 3 years ago when we would get on here and we'd have nothing to talk about because the Wings sucked and the Pistons were out of the playoff picture. And we were just like, all right, let's talk about who the Lions should draft. Trent and Collins, argue about it. Go.
I was saying this the other night that the Lions season was magical because it was like every single week, like life didn't even exist outside Lions football. It was just like
Right.
you wake up on Sunday and you're like, I got Lions football, and then Monday through Saturday, nothing matters except watching the Lions Sunday, and it was the most
Well,
beautiful thing.
this is also coming from a guy who spent money and time to fly out to San Francisco, and I God bless you for it. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah,
Obviously, I'm sorry that it turned out the way it did, but you're exactly right. I mean, that's what August, a couple
April.
weeks ago. That's what it was for the sports. The Lions were quite literally the only thing that mattered, and I think it's funny you bring that up, is because like how good the Lions were, how great the Lions were. I will upgrade to great. Is that helped the Pistons out because they sucked. They're historically
Yeah,
awful.
cover it
Took a
up.
lot of heat off of them. And I feel like Rabs, Michigan winning a national championship in football, that's kind of doing the same sort of thing with their basketball program right now. Like
Yeah,
that's
it's
how it
awesome.
works in sports. When you have fans of everything, it's like you get so hyper concentrated on one thing. Even if Rabs, like you're a huge hockey fan, but
Huge.
like you said, up until a couple weeks ago, it was all Lions all the time. And now I'm just glad the Wings are coming through for you in a time where we really need it because in years past, we haven't been so lucky.
Oh, dude, and that's probably a tremendous place to start as we roll here on this leap day. Um, And that's why I brought up the point about the Lions, because this Red Wings team is now doing the same thing to me that the Lions did, in the sense of I have been looking forward to this Thursday night hockey game, which they do play tonight against the Islanders at home. I've been looking forward to it for the last 2 days since the game ended on Tuesday against Washington. And that's what this team is going to do to me. And I think a lot of Wings fans, all the way through beginning mid-April until the playoffs roll around, which as it sits right now, the Red Wings are a playoff team. And that, like, I think we
Firmly.
talked about it. We talked about it briefly in the group chat of just like, this team is doing the same thing to me that the Lions are. And like, and you made a comment about how like, this is how sports are. Like, this is, it's sad that this is the effect that sports have on us. Or maybe you didn't use it in that negative of a context, but it's so true. And it's almost like the absence makes the heart grow fonder, because I have not, like, this is the first time in my life, and granted, age has to do with a lot of it, and just being, this is our peak years of like truly being involved in sports in a mature manner. And so it's like, you haven't seen, as you said, the Wings haven't been competitive as far as a playoff team, and I don't know, 5 to 7 to 8 to 10 years, and the Pistons, whatever. But like, the Tigers have juice. They legitimately have a chance to win the Central. They should win the Central. And so it's just been great. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, you're obviously, when it comes to your hierarchy of fandom, like, I know you're not a hockey fan first, but I mean, you were at a Griffins game the other day. I think you're buying in a little bit.
Of course. I mean, my biggest reason for wanting to go to that, well, a couple reasons. Shout out to Bailey, AWL. She listens to the show every week. She was in town, so Doc and I wanted to go, show her Van Andel Arena. She loved it. She had a good time. It was actually a great time. We can talk about that another time. But anyways, yes, there's that. I wanted to watch Sebastian Costa. I wanted to just take in a hockey game. It was awesome. It went to overtime. What more can you ask for? It was a great game. It was entertaining. There were like 5 fights. It was awesome. So, but as far as the Wings go, Rabs, like, you're exactly right. I lose the Lions, and then I got to pivot to something. Michigan State basketball ain't exactly taking care of me right now. The Pistons stopped taking care of me after about 3 games this season. And I mean, other than that, I mean, obviously I'm excited for the Tigers, but like, dude, the Wings, even for a guy like me who's not a huge hockey fan, are so fun to watch. They play fast as shit. They scored, 8 goals against the Caps the other night? Like, this Wings team is so fun to watch. Young players, legends like Patrick Kane. Like, it is a crazy mixed bag. And I know the Yeiser plan got memed a little bit, but this is a good chance, Rabs, I think, for you to just put your foot down and drive, because you've earned this. You called it.
Thank you very much.
I think you said 5 years ago. I think it was our second year doing the podcast. You said 2023 would be the year. Obviously, we're 1 year late, but like, similar, you know what I mean? Similar take. Never too high, never too low, and now here we are.
Oh, dude, it's fucking awesome. Pardon my French. Kid-friendly show that's not so kid-friendly, but it's been great. I mean, they've just ripped off 6 games in a row, 6 wins in a row. The notable ones to me, I was in person to watch the Avs game in overtime, and that, to me, that was kind of like, no matter where this season ends up, I will look back at that Colorado Avalanche game and be like, that was the turning point in this whole thing of all the years of watching a bad team led by Jeff Blashill, all the years of maybe looking at the Yeiser plan, like, what are we doing here? That against the team with Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Cale Makar, one of the best teams in hockey right now in the Colorado Avalanche, to win that game at home in overtime in the fashion you did, and the beautiful puck work by Sherratt, Larkin, and then Patrick Kane finishes it off. And then 2 games later, which I think deserves its own talking point, and we'll get to it as far as Sunday is concerned, but that kind of flipped the switch to me of, okay, like, this was a great win. And they've now won 6 in a row. They beat the shit out of St. Louis on Saturday, and probably the best game I've seen them play in a decade. And then they follow it up with against Washington 8-3, and you're looking at both of those games, and like St. Louis is a wild card team in the West, and who I'm losing my mind right now. Washington is kind of sneaky right behind you in the wild card a little bit over here in the East. So you can't discount what those wins look like. And I know that in the grand scheme of things, as we talk about the playoff picture, I would tell you that you've just saw how much better you are than Washington. You're going to see a New York Islanders team that comes in with 62 points, who's 10 points behind you, who's also fighting for a wild card spot on the outside looking in. Like, you're better than these teams. And to stack up against a team like Colorado, who, probably on paper is much better than you are. They won the Stanley Cup a couple years ago. If not last year, I don't know what year is it. Whatever.
Wait, Rabs, can I just throw in real quick? It's you mentioned that was like the turning point for you, where you were kind of like, okay, this team's actually primed to do something, and you've always been a believer. But for that to be the game, and you're right, to win it in that fashion, and for it to come against the Avs,
that's great. Awesome. Yeah, it was great, but the beautiful thing here, and I know I'm jumping around, like this is a big game tonight because, again, you're playing a team that's competing for a wild card spot, and I don't foresee the Islanders making any kind of reasonable push here, but you have some phenomenal hockey games coming up here down the stretch. And I heard something the other day about a lot of the teams that are right around the wings, as far as like the Lightning and maybe the Leafs and some of these other fringe wild card teams, have much harder schedules than you do. But I'm looking at this schedule, and after you get past the Islanders tonight, Saturday you see the Panthers at home, and the Panthers are one of the best teams, if not the best team in the East right now, who also plays in your division. You get the Avs again on the road. You're going to see the Golden Knights. You're going to see the Panthers again, the Lightning, the Rangers down later in the year. You get the Leafs one more time. Like, there are plenty of games left to play here, but mixed in, like, you have your Arizonas 2 or 3 times that you can try to pick off. You have Montreal twice, back-to-back games to end the season at a home and home that you can pick off. So, like, there's opportunity here to really solidify your presence, but at the same time, you're going to get to see these tests that I think the Wings really need. And granted, Colorado in itself is a test, but how do you stack up against Florida this late in the season? How do you stack up against Toronto this late in the season, Tampa Bay, what have you? So, I mean, as it sits right now, they own the first wild card spot. And granted, they have 2 games in hand on Tampa Bay, and they're 3 points ahead of them in the wild card. And now, to me, Trent, honestly, like, I think catching the Bruins, and it makes no sense how the Bruins are this good, because you would probably look at that roster, no disrespect, but you probably couldn't tell me 2 guys you recognize on that team outside of like Brad Marchand and Charlie McAvoy. And Florida as well probably, could make the case of being the best team in the league as of right now. Those are 2 teams I don't believe you're going to catch. But the Maple Leafs have played 58 games to your 59, and they're 2 points up on you right now. If you want to talk goal differentials, they're a plus 31. The Wings are a plus 27. And like, that to me says a lot, because the teams below you that are chasing you in the wild card, Tampa Bay +1 goal differential, New Jersey -7, Washington -33, the Islanders -27. Like, they are playing legitimate good hockey. And just to look at these other teams, like, you look at the Metropolitan Division. If the Red Wings played in the Metro, they would be in 3rd place right now, because Philly, somehow the Philadelphia Flyers are in 3rd place in that division with 69 points in 60 games and a +6 goal differential. Like,
and they're not good.
No, they're not. I would actually say they suck. They're really not good at all. And like, so like, my point being here is when you look at these teams and you look at these divisions around the league, Granted, I think the Wings have the talent that Edmonton does? No, I don't think they have the talent that Colorado does. I don't think they have the talent, and they're not as complete as a team like Dallas. Like, they don't have that high end skill, I guess I would say, that like puts you in that conversations where it just feels like these teams are better. Like the Red Wings don't really have a Jason Robertson. They don't have a Nathan McKinnon. They don't have a Connor McDavid. They don't have a Matthew Tkachuk. Like, that's not how the Wings are built. But how they're built and how I look at this team compared to everyone likes to make the comparison to the Lightning. In the Tampa Bay Lightning that Steve Yzerman built, just such a balance. Like, if it's not Nikita Kucherov coming at you, it's Braden Point. If it's not Braden Point, it's Anthony Cirelli. If it's not Anthony Cirelli, it's Yanni Gord. If it's not Yanni Gord, it's Ross Colton. Like, all these guys that just, Tyler Johnson's, who obviously
Deep.
was not just deep. And on the blue line, like, if it's not Victor Hedman, it's Mikhail Sergachev. If it's not Sergachev, it's Eric Chernak. You have Andrei Vasilevsky. It's fucking
yeah.
crazy.
Rabs, can I throw this in there real quick? So
Jump
this
in.
is funny
I'm going off the rails.
No, you're fine, and I love it. I fucking love it. It's great. But being down here where I'm at in like Estero / Fort Myers, Florida, so I'm equal distance south of Tampa and west of where the Florida Panthers play in Sunrise. So our station covers both teams equally, and the vibe around the both teams right now could not be any more different. Like, it's two ends of the spectrum. The Lightning, they think they're kind of at the end of that run. All the fans are upset. They want them to sell at the deadline. And I just thought it's funny that you bring all that up, because one of the things that one of our hosts really likes to say every single day is it's nice to have a Vasilevsky. And I guess as long as you have a guy like that, you're going to be in the mix for stuff. But the Lightning certainly feel like they're at the end of their run. So you talk about these litmus tests that come up, and it's like the Wings have a chance to really, if they haven't already, assert themselves here, and I think it's great. And then as far as the Panthers go, they're coming off a season where they were a couple of games from skating with Lord Stanley. I mean, you gotta love it, and the vibes over there are impeccable. So you're kind of in this middle ground if you're the Wings. I'm not saying the Wings are a middle of the pack team. I'm just saying, like, there's a real chance to do something here, and it's awesome, Rabs, to just for you to continue your point. Like, they're answering the bell finally, and they're getting these litmus tests, and they're passing them with flying colors. It's awesome.
Because this just seems like the point in the year where, and I remember, and I would have to look back at those dates of the two Ottawa games last year back to back, where we're like, these are the two biggest games of the year. And I ultimately they lose both. I'm 99% sure they lose both. And that kind of not a fire sale, that would be over exaggerating, but that was like, okay, we're selling again. And now I just feel like, in a very, very similar way to the Lions, I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, where is this team's 5-game losing skid? Where is the blowout? Like, what are we waiting for here? And just night after night, like, was Washington, and this is, I guess, how we can wrap in the Sunday talk about Patrick Kane's return to Chicago. Was the Washington game not the perfect letdown spot? The emotional high of emotional highs on Sunday. You come back home on Tuesday against Washington. Anthony Mantha back in the house. No one gives a shit. But, like, is that not the perfect spot for Washington to take advantage of you? And you beat the shit out of them after beating the shit out of St. Louis at home. And so, to talk about this Sunday game real quick before I roll into this outlook for the rest of the season, and I'm sorry I'm throwing so much Wings talk in, but they deserve it.
Dude, it's great. Yes, they do. They're the best team in the city right now.
Finally.
The Lions aren't playing.
Sunday in Chicago, Patrick Kane's return. First of all, the fact that it also was coupled with Chris Chelios' jersey retirement night was awesome. I thought Chelly had a great speech. So many former players, and not just former players, but legends and celebrities. And it must have been so amazing to be at the United Center for all of that. He comes out in the beautiful old school car with his mom onto the ice. And then they give Patrick Kane his flowers with 2 or 3 different, ovations and laps or whatever. And just in a game where truly you're like, how the fuck, like, they can't score. Like, Peter Mrazek has their number, like, how serendipitous, but like they can't score. They're not playing very well. You're neck and neck with one of the worst teams in the league, if not the complete worst team in the league. And then, like out of a fucking movie, it's like you can't even see Patrick Kane in the frame. And then all of a sudden the puck gets chipped out of the zone. And here he comes, like you've seen a million times in his career. He takes the look behind him, and he's got all the time in the world, and his feet slow down, and it's all hands, and just the flick of the wrist, game's over. And he's going over to the crowd, showtime, is fucking unbelievable. And truly, like, the media, and I always listen to Spit and Chicklets, which is the Barstool flagship hockey podcast, as everyone knows. But they coined it as like one of the greatest nights in hockey in a very long time. Like it was complete theater. It was like it was scripted. And just like to talk real quick, because I want to roll into what this roster looks like and where they're going to go here with the trade deadline. I think is probably less than a week away, or maybe a day or two more
9
than a
days.
week away. 9 days, so a little bit more than a week away. But this Patrick Kane signing has been like, and I don't even want to, my flowers aren't even going towards Steve Yzerman in this. How awesome for Patrick Kane, who the last like 2 years dealing with excruciating hip pain and really just wasn't the same player, in and out of the lineup. He gets moved from Chicago and starts this new chapter in New York. And, I think he was a point per game player in the playoffs for the Rangers too. But just to have the surgery and to come back and for it all to fall in place of him coming to Detroit, and that to me is like, that's the Yzer plan. It's we're the Detroit Red Wings.
Destiny.
This is what we have. Yeah, this is what we have to work with. I'm Steve Yzerman. Like, you're going to want to come play here. And Patrick Kane has said some awesome things in the media about like, this team is built to play in the playoffs. And
Rabs, not to cut you off because you're cooking right now, but like it's not just that it's Patrick Kane. It's that like he's talking about the Red Wings historically. And like, this is as Detroit fans, this is one of the few franchises in this city. I say few, it's like the only one that has a sustained long history that you can fall back on. And it's just so nice and refreshing to hear him say, yeah, I've always admired the Red Wings. I've always kind of wanted to play here. And it's not just that he's playing well, he's bought in to the point where like he's mentoring the younger players. And like you just were alluding to, he's saying, guys, we can do this. Like, this team is built to make a run here. And it's fucking gorgeous, Rabs.
It is. It's the perfect piece for a team that still has some young players. And, you have some other veterans in the room, like David Perron's been there, Ben Sherrod. I'm not sure I'm sure he's played in the playoffs at some point in his career, like Jeff Petrie. Like, you have some veteran guys in the room. But when I make these comments about, the Red Wings, and I love Dylan Larkin. I'll get to Dylan Larkin in a second, because I have receipts for all that shit, and it's a shame that Ryan Collins isn't on here to eat crow in front of my face. No disrespect. But like, yes, you don't have a Nathan McKinnon, you don't have a Connor McDavid, you don't have a David Pastrnak. Like, you don't have some of these elite, true, high-end, like superstar players. But if there is a minuscule layer below that, like, that's where a guy to me like Dylan Larkin falls in, and Alex DeBrincat, and you have the superstar of all superstars in Patrick Kane, who, yes, is kind of in that conversation of like the Crosbys and the Ovechkins of the league of when we were growing up. Like, that's our McDavid, that's our McKinnon, that's our David Pastrnak, like, are those top guys in the league. And now they're kind of on their way out. But just the presence that Patrick Kane brings is the biggest asset to this team and to the city. And he's still producing. Like, it's not like you just roll him out there on the third or fourth line and just, hope that he can play on the power play and go for a skate. Like, this Larkin, DeBrincat, Kane line, it's fucking disgusting. Like, the one goal they put in the other night against Washington, it's like the fucking zone entry from Larkin, drops it back to Kane. Kane throws it back up to Larkin. Larkin goes cross crease into Brinkett. Fucking good luck. Like, what the fuck? What are you supposed to do? It's right now. I would put that line, maybe not defensively, but against any line in hockey. And you look, and that's where I want to get back to this whole like Tampa Bay comparison, if that's what you want to do. And I'll admit, I was beyond skeptical of giving Andrew Kopp $5 million a year for the next 4 or 5 years, which we can maybe talk about that contract because I'm not a huge Andrew Kopp guy. I was beyond skeptical of giving JT Comp for 5.6 for 5 years. Like these little pieces that have come in, even like the Christian Fisher, where you're looking around, you're like, what the fuck? But like it all works. And it is it's not even like, yeah, sure. They don't have the first line that Colorado does. But you know what? Colorado doesn't have the third and fourth line that the Detroit Red Wings do. They just don't. Like, and that's where when you watch a game like the Wings playing against Colorado and you can trust your first line to effectively shut down the McKinnon line and shut down that top six forward group, and then you can lean on your bottom six, like Daniel Sprong is playing on the fourth line with Robbie Fabry and Christian Fisher. They seem to be on the score sheet every single night. Like they can roll 4 lines and be comfortable with it. And that's why the Red Wings are so good right now, because these other teams, like when you see teams at the trade deadline in the NHL go acquire players, a lot of it comes down to those guys of like, we're going to move a 3rd, 4th, or 5th round pick for a guy that can play in our bottom 6 and just be tough and maybe contribute some depth scoring. The Red Wings don't need any of it. They don't need it. And as we roll into the trade deadline talks, and this is maybe where we can have a more open dialogue, as I've just been absolutely fucking all over this team for the last half hour.
It's great.
I'm looking at this roster, and I think the Wings need to be very diligent about what they do here. And I also wanted to bring this up earlier too when you were talking about the Lions and Brad Holmes. It seems to me like the general managers in this city, like I don't know if there are any other teams or a group of teams as a whole that is more close to the vest with what's going on internally in terms of like, who are we looking at moving? Who are we looking like? You don't get a word edgewise out of anyone, and especially not
what?
the Red Wings.
Rabs. Wait, you're telling me the Lions we don't have Brad Holmes doing a local radio show every week like Jerry Jones is? Like what? Is that what you're telling me?
Believe it or not, like you don't know whether they're coming or going, and you just have to kind of sit back and trust it. And so, to that effect, like we don't really know what's going on in Steve Yzerman's mind in terms of like, does he really feel like there's enough there that they go get one player and all of a sudden they are truly contending for a cup? Because I would tell you that they're probably not there yet. They're not a true cup contender, but I think that if you're going to look at this team and go, this is a team that's going to be a 5-6 games and out, like they're going to be a tough out. And you see in the NHL, and that's why it's a beautiful league. You don't have to win the President's Trophy to win the Stanley Cup every year. In fact, if you win the President's Trophy, you're more likely to not win the Stanley Cup. So to me, if I'm Steve Yzerman, I don't have, which I'd kill to be, I have no interest in breaking up the true foundation of this team. There's been talk about David Perron getting moved, who is an unrestricted free agent after this season. Slowed down a bit, sure. A guy that you can still trust on the power play, a guy that's integral to that room and to that culture. Like, I don't have an interest in moving someone like him because I also don't feel like there's really any movement. I know Derek Lalonde made the comment that he's like looking for another forward maybe to add to that group. And I don't know. And I would love to know how they feel about a guy like Andrew Kopp. Like that to me is the biggest question mark, because I look at Andrew Kopp as a guy who's always very, very quiet when it comes to the score sheet, and he'll show up there. And I know he's a tremendous penalty killer. He's pretty reliable in the face-off dot when they keep him at center. But like, to me, not a guy worth the $5 million they gave him. JT Compher has been worth every penny. Just up and down the ice, complete game. Has been, I think he has 15, 16 goals this year. And that's another part of this Red Wings team of, how many guys are scoring double-digit goals. But like, so I struggle to see where they want to fit someone in. And for the longest time, I was like, okay, well, Michael Rasmussen, that's going to be the guy they move. Like they have enough guys that can play on the wing in the bottom six. They can bring a guy like Jonathan Bergeron up to replace him. He'll be gone. Like that's it. We'll move on. And even a guy like Joe Veleno, who I pray to God they extend Joe Veleno, and I think they will. But like I don't know where another forward fits in here. Like, do I want to bring in a Vladimir Tarasenko from Ottawa? Not really. To slam into that group somewhere. Do I want to bring in a Jake Gunsel? Not really, because I think Gunsel probably makes anywhere from 5 to 7 mil right now. He's hurt. Do you want to extend him? Like, I don't know. But the game that I will play with you is that they can use help on D for sure. And I think where that comes in is Justin Holl hasn't played a game in like a month. You almost think he's hurt. And that's where I'd like to get into Steve Yzerman's brain of like, dude, you gave him 3 years for $3 million a piece. Like, what were we thinking here? So and now his name is rumored to like, okay, that's someone you can move. And I guess if that's maybe what Steve Yzerman has tried to do. Like, here's a guy that could benefit from a fresh start in Detroit because he got ran out of town in Toronto. And now, as you see, as time goes on, okay, he's our true seventh defenseman, but there's other teams around the league that can use defensive depth that might throw you a draft pick so that you can move a Justin Holl. And that's fine. Go ahead.
I got a question for you. For what it's worth, I agree with you about the forwards for what I know about hockey, which ain't much, but it's kind of like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I don't want to just be so prisoner of the moment. Like they're on this win streak, so let's just keep riding it.
And they're also top 5 in scoring too. Like, what do you want? Like, what are you supposed to add?
They score a lot. And that's where that rolls into what I want to talk about here with you is like, Mo Seider's also been playing a lot better recently. So I don't know, how does that affect does that cloud your vision at all as we're now, I think I misspoke earlier. I think we're like 8 days away from the trade line. Bottom line, a week, give or take, away from the trade deadline. Like, how much does Mo Seider's play affect your vision on if this team can get any better? Because also, Rabs, real quick, just last thing, like Alex Lyon's been awesome. He's been just what the doctor ordered for this team. Can he sustain that? That's what I'm nervous about.
Well, I think Mo Seider's play, and that's a great comment because there was a period of time where I was like, he's a tremendous talent and a great player. But I think for a while there, you were like, okay, well, it really hasn't been the same since that rookie season. But he is just
right. He wins the Calder, and then a little bit of a letdown last year,
sure,
and then honestly to start this year, a little bit of a letdown. But he seemed. I don't know, like maybe the last 15 games or so, he's kind of found something. So I don't know if you think that's sustainable or if you think it's like if the Wings are going to buy it, needs to be on defense for sure, right?
Yeah, well, I think the question that you have to answer, and you don't necessarily need the answer now, is Mo Seider going to be your number one defenseman of the future? And the reason I say that is because like I love the Jake Wallman Mo Seider pair, but do I necessarily think that that's the pair that is going to be able to be a mainstay in the playoffs when you're playing some of this premier talent? Like, probably not. And that's why I look at a guy like Jacob Chikrin or a guy like Noah Hannafin that maybe you go out and trade for if you feel like, okay, here's the guy playing on the left side with Mo, and that will not only raise Seider's game, but it will make you a better product defensively because now a guy like Jake Wallman can move down to the second pairing, and you have a more offensively minded defenseman in Jake Wallman paired with a more defensively minded defenseman in Ben Sherratt. And now you can move a guy like Oli Mata down to the third pair, or I guess he already sticks at the third pair. But now you're in a situation where, okay, we have Shane Gostisbehere and Oli Mata on our third pair. We can scratch Jeff Petrie every night, which is phenomenal. Like Jeff Petrie is the worst player on the ice every night.
Rabs, at some point I was gonna poke the bear there because I know you've made several comments over the last over this winning streak. You've made several comments about Jeff Petrie.
And truly, and it might have been Ryan Collins that said this, that like if his dad wasn't on the broadcast for Bally Sports Detroit, like Jeff Petrie wouldn't be here. And I think back at that trade because I feel like that trade also involved Kyler Yamamoto and Klim Kostin, I think, like for draft picks and so I don't even know why they did it. But now you're in a situation where it's like, I would at least hope that if you can move Justin Hall, even if it's for a draft pick, and you bring in a defenseman like a Noah Hannafin or a Jacob Chikrin, or even, I'm going to tell you the guy, Marcus Pettersson, that no one's really talking about from Pittsburgh, then you can scratch Jeff Petrie. And I love your defense. I love it. And the question becomes, like, where does Simon Edvinsson fit into that whole thing? Because now you're looking at a situation too where if we carry into next year, and I don't want to jump the gun here, Wallman's locked up. Mo Seider's due for a contract. Oli Mata has 1 more year. Jeff Petrie has 1 more year. Sherratt has 2 more years. Justin Hull would have 2 more years. And Shane Gostisbehere is due as a free agent, who I believe should be re-signed because he's been tremendous offensively, especially. He's looked tough in a couple games, but that's not his game. That's why you pair him with a guy like Mata or a guy like Petrie or Sherratt, who are true, like, more stay-at-home defensemen, because, Gostisbehere finds himself in a lot of situations where, maybe he's caught below the dot in the offensive zone. He likes to get involved in the play as kind of like a fourth forward type of deal. So that's just kind of the risk reward you take with Shane Gostisbehere, who, people forget how good he was in Philly when he first came out of college. Those are fun highlights to watch too. If you're ever bored one night, I was telling someone that the other day. We were talking about this in another group chat. Shane Gostisbehere college highlights. But beside the point. So I think there's a lot of impatience with Simon Edvinsson, and I would have to imagine that he is on this roster to start the season next year without question. But that's where I would love to be in Steve Yzerman's brain. Like, do you feel like you have enough in Simon Edvinsson that you can trust him to come up? You move one of those, between Petrie and Hall, or even if they feel like they can move Mata, which I'd probably rather not. But can you trust Simon Edvinsson? But I think the tricky thing is, and where Steve Yzerman's head is probably at, is I'm not bringing up Simon Edvinsson if he's not going to play special teams and if he's going to play on your third pair. If you don't trust him to play in your top 4, or even if he is playing on the third pair, if you don't trust him to play in penalty killing situations and late game situations and in special teams, like, I don't see the need to bring him up because he's getting to do all of that in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, you don't want to jump the gun, right, Rabs? Like, there are some situations
Correct.
where you want a guy to complete his development at a lower level, and that way
Correct.
he can come up and keep that same role almost. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
let him play in every situation. And when he comes up here next year, just, there should be no, I don't think Steve Yzerman likes doing that to young players of like, okay, you're going to play with the big club, but you're going to be playing limited minutes and you're not going to play in all situations. And, every time there's a defensive zone face off, you're off the, I don't think he wants to play that game. So if there is a move to be made, I do think you can go out and get a defenseman. And I would love to see Simon Edvinsson up here. And if that's what they feel like they have to do, that's fine. I think Marcus Pettersson would be a great fit here as a left shot defenseman. He's got the Swedish blood, which they love. And I believe he has 1 more year on his deal after this year, making like $4.2 million. And that can, in that aspect of it, like the Red Wings, I believe, have $11 million in cap space right now. That aspect of that cap space is so huge because you see a lot of these moves that happen around the league. Like Chris Tanev's a perfect example that just got moved from Calgary to Dallas, and not necessarily a guy I think the Red Wings were in on, but 50% of his salary is being retained by another team. I'm like, you'll start to see these moves of like New Jersey is retaining 25%. So the Red Wings don't have to do any of that to Pittsburgh. Like, they can take all of his contract on. And I think that innately balances out to where you don't have to give up as much as you were going to if you were going to ask them to retain some salary. So the name that keeps coming up is Jonathan Berggren. There was some rumors that he's like not happy with the organization, or maybe even turned down a contract extension as a guy that's a point per game player in the AHL. He's an unrestricted free agent after this season, I believe, or he might be an RFA. But either way, like, that is a perfect example of a guy who is a product of circumstances. I do not believe is a Steve Yzerman draft pick. I don't think he is. Might be one of the last ones from the Kenny Holland era, but is just getting buried based on depth, which is fine. And you give him a shot elsewhere for a guy that can immediately go play in the middle 6, bottom 6 for another team. And you get a guy that can help you play right now. Like, that is where I believe the move should be coming for the Wings.
It's a good problem to have, Rabs. Depth is a good problem to have.
Yeah, and I just feel like when you want to talk about depth, like go look at your prospect pool. And I'm not so keen on, because I do trust Steve Yzerman, even though Raymond and Seider are the only two Yzerman draft picks playing in the NHL right now. I understand that. But I do trust Steve Yzerman in the same way I trust Brad Holmes, that I think draft picks are so valuable to this man. So I'm not really in the mood to see you trade a first round pick, even though it's probably going to be in the latter half of the year. And keep in mind, you also have Boston's first round pick this year, but you have to send, between Boston and the Red Wings, you're sending one of those picks to Ottawa to finish the Alex DeBrincat trade. But like, I'm not really in the mood to move draft picks. What I am in the mood to move is a guy like Jonathan Berggren. I am in the mood to move a guy like Elmer Soderblom, who everyone's enamored by his size. And, you know, I think it was exciting to watch him play at the beginning of last year. But again, as a guy that's like not a fantastic skater, I think he's only got like 20 points in 44 games this year. You can start looking to your farm system of, let's unload some of these guys for guys that can play right now, because inevitably they're going to be in trouble at a certain point, because like you have guys that are playing with the big club that are on these deals, and where are these young guys going to fit in, you know? So it is a good problem to have. I would love to see a guy like Marcus Pettersson here. I would love to see a Noah Hannafin or a Jacob Chikrin. It's all going to come down to what is Steve Yzerman willing to spend, and I'm not willing to spend a ton, to be honest with you. But with that being said, and to look at the goalies real quick, Alex Lyon has been a treat. Like, nobody expected this from Alex Lyon. Alex Lyon wasn't even really in the conversation of like, let's talk about, you know, let's talk about who's going to start in net this year for the Wings, and it's Ville Husso is the only name that comes up. And okay, James Reimer's here, and like I think Alex Lyon was getting scratched to start the season, but they were having goaltender issues. You know, you have some injuries. Lyon comes in, and so like, do I think the best thing for this team right now is to go out and acquire a goalie? Fuck no, because like you're riding Alex Lyon, and I think everyone's behind him and in his corner, and to bring in another goalie to what, solidify your tandem. I mean, you would think between Ville Husso and James Reimer, who's been pretty good in limited starts this season, like you have enough there to get you through the playoffs. So that could be an interesting thing too, Trent, of like, if Ville Husso gets healthy and they feel confident enough with Alex Lyon and James Reimer, like they might move a guy like that for an asset for a team that's looking to shore up goaltending. And I'm not going to say that I'm like the most confident in the world in this, in the three goaltenders the Red Wings have, but they've been good enough. So, with that being said, man, I mean, I know at this point, like I'm probably just beating the Red Wings into the ground here, but it's been a treat to watch. And as you said, like they're playing fast. Like there is so much continuity to their game of it just seems like every single shift they're getting pucks out of the zone. I think they look so much more collected from a zone entry perspective of just like everyone's getting comfortable with their line mates. Like things are starting to click. They're the time of possession in zone is just getting better and better each game. And they're scoring in bunches, like 8 goals against Washington, 6 goals against the Blues. Like you're in that's the thing too, is you're finding all these different ways to score. You're scoring shorthanded. You're scoring on the power play. You're scoring 5-a-side. Like you're scoring off the rush. You're scoring with sustained pressure. And you're also winning these big blowout games. You're winning these games where you're down. You're winning these games where you have to force overtime. Like this, like it's exactly what you want to see from this team. So I guess that's where I'll leave it with the Wings talk. They got the Islanders tonight. I don't know if this probably won't be up in time. So this Islanders game will probably be over by the time we're done recording this, or before this podcast is released. But this trade deadline is going to be great. And I just, you know, and one more thing too, before I truly end this, like I would have to go back and look at every single one of the moves that Steve Yzerman has made. And dude, when I tell you that this guy wins every single trade, like I'm just thinking about guys that have since left the team, like the DeBrincat trade. Go look at Dominic Kubalik's numbers. Like you think Ottawa would rather have Alex DeBrincat right now than Dominic Kubalik? You're goddamn right they would.
Hey, Rabs, let me put it into terms for people like me who aren't necessarily a huge hockey fan who love Detroit sports. Think of Al Avila and then like scroll all the way to the other side, and like that is what Steve Yzerman's doing right now.
It's the other end of the spectrum, and I think I actually take that back. Jeff Petrie might have been I think because Petrie's been on a couple teams. That might have been Jeff Petrie from Montreal for Gustav Lindstrom, who Gustav Lindstrom I believe was like released and is now playing in the AHL and the Ducks organization. And I think he's got like maybe a handful of games like him, Donovan Sabrango, who you moved for Alex DeBrincat, who's buried in the AHL and is not really producing. Like, I would say the worst move he made was Verona for Mantha, but you got draft picks and Mantha sucks too. Just every move he makes, like you just have to trust that. I know some people will be upset if they move a Bergeron or a Soderblom or whoever. Like I don't like they have. I mean, fuck, man. Like they're these names that now it's starting to become like the Tigers of like when I used to like speed up a little. Like where are we at?
That is
like,
exactly,
you know what I mean?
That's exactly what I was going to get to. Is I think we kind of. And again, this has been an episode where we're just drawing parallels to all the teams, but I love it because we're one of the few teams in America that have 4 teams. I love it. But I think sometimes when a team is so like in purgatory and just spinning the tires forever, you get used to losing. That's where the Pistons are at right now. Like they're used to just losing. No one really cares. It just kind of is what it is. But like the Wings are in a position where like what are they, Rabs, a top 3 seed in the division? Are they're going to avoid the wild card round?
They're on the doorstep. I think if they win, I don't know if Toronto plays, and if they win tonight, they'd be tied with Toronto in points.
So my point is simply like they're going to be a playoff team, and if all things go well, they're going to avoid a wild card. Like they're going to be hosting playoff games if it gets to a game 7 or something like that. And like that's a different type of operation. We're not just looking towards the future. Every now and then, it's like, dude, we're looking at here and now. And I think as Detroit, just to give these less optimistic fans a little bit of a scapegoat. I understand how you feel. I get it. I'm aware that we want to hang on to the young guy, the Sekou Doumbouya, or I can't even think of a Tigers player. There's a million of them, but like just the young guys you've been hearing about forever. And you want Alex Faedo, like you want to hold on to that guy. And when they trade him, you're pissed off. But like, this is not that, dude, because the Red Wings are here. And Rabs, you just gave a perfect 45-minute monologue, basically. I mean, I sprinkled some stuff in here, but people are going to love it because you broke it down beautifully. The Red Wings are here. They're very good. They're a top 10 team in the NHL, and 100%. It's time to rock, man. So if you, it's a good problem to have to be a buyer at the deadline. Let's put it that way. And we won't know how these moves age if they do make any moves, but Steve Yzerman's earned your trust at this point. So that's all. 8 days till the deadline, Rabs.
Did you see the jersey sponsor? Did you see that come out today?
I didn't. You texted us about it. You didn't tell us who it was because you weren't allowed to, but who is it?
It's Priority Waste Management. They are a Michigan garbage company. It is it could be worse. I guess from the standpoint of like the company, not great. Like it could have. I don't know if it could get
garbage
worse company, but the stitching on the jersey is okay. Like it's a small ad, and I know people are up in arms because it is truly the best jersey in sports that's now being somewhat tarnished. It's just the sign of the times. I think like. Could you at least throw like Motor City Casino on there or like a, Better Made Chips or Shinola?
UWM's done the Wings. They've done the Pistons.
Or just fucking leave it. But they are moving the captain's patches to the other side of the jersey back when like, the 1990s and whatnot, where they're on top, the tip of the wing, which I think is good juju, but not a great time to mess with the jerseys when you're on a 6-game winning streak here. But nonetheless. Let's turn it over now to you, Trent, because you have some Pistons news and topics to talk about. I do, before we before you get into it all, I wanted to ask you, because I was watching the Knicks game for whatever reason, because there's nothing else on TV, and I'm sure you might have a little bit of a soliloquy on that. But how do you feel about Monty Williams getting about as probably as animated as we've seen him here in Detroit post game in relation to the refs? Like, I'm curious to hear your take, because I have one that you might not agree with or might not like about his comments.
Okay, well, I'll shoot from the hip then. I haven't really thought about it in this light, but I appreciate this question because I think it's boiling over. Like he's the highest paid coach in the I almost said the NFL. I think that he just paid Spoelstra, so now he's technically the highest. But like Monty Williams is getting paid, I think, $12 million a year to coach the worst team in the NBA, and I think it was just it got to him. He got angry, but Rabs, as far as the reaction goes, I loved it. Why not? It was ridiculous. It was egregious. And I got some quick thoughts on that Knicks game before I turn it over to you on this. And then I got some bigger picture thoughts on the Pistons. But as far as that Knicks game goes, man, I mean, that was terrible. That officiating was horrible. Dante DiVincenzo laying out Usar Thompson. That would have been ejection worthy in the NFL, or people at least on Twitter or X or whatever the fuck you want to call it would have been calling for Dante DiVincenzo's head for a dirty hit. I mean, the fact that the officials almost immediately admitted their mistake to Rabs. I don't know if you caught that, but
I heard that
5 minutes after the game, they went up to Monty. They were, and I think that's also speaks to Monty Williams' character. I think that's part of the reason he ripped them the way he did, because he's like, okay, they already admitted their mistake to me. I know they're going to apologize. This was horrible. It was the worst thing I've seen in the last whatever he said. And I would have been a lot more pissed off if this team was actually good or around 500, or even the team that they were like 3 years ago, Rabs, where it's like they're kind of scrappy, fun to watch. Like, I would have been a lot more pissed off. But basically, if you're like me out there and you're a Pistons fan and you still are somewhat keeping up with the team, all I needed them to do was cover 11.5. So, I mean, the fact they were they were winning
Great
the game
sharp
at that
call.
point was awesome. So I think it fired, if anything, it fired them up to beat the Bulls the next night, which I have some thoughts on. But let's stay with this Knicks game. And Rabs, I don't know. I liked his reaction because it was egregious. In the NBA, I know you always pull this card. Sick league. I mean, it just is what it is. They've got a lot of issues there. The officiating's a joke. The player movement, some people think, is a joke. So it's a smaller part of a bigger picture, I think, Rabs. But like, I liked his reaction because he called them out on their bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the fact, like, I don't know what the proper way to handle the officiating stuff is, but like, that's the first time that I've watched a Monty Williams press conference, and I respect Monty Williams as a human being because I know he's been through a lot, and that's like the thing they coin him as is this leader of men, which is all fine and dandy, but like, it's just a shame that it took this long for him to show any kind of emotion that he like gave a shit. Like, dude, like your team's been getting
Rabs, I can get behind that. I can get behind
yeah,
that.
like your team's been getting fucked by calls all year. Cade Cunningham shoots one free throw every 6 games. Like, you guys suck, Monty. You guys suck. Like act like you give a shit. So, and then they followed it up with the win in Chicago. Like, that's great, Trent. Like, I agree with that. But I mean, nonetheless, like, obviously you are more dialed into the Pistons than I am. So by all means, I've just given you my Shakespeare-esque monologue about the Wings. So I'll turn it over to you for Piston stuff.
Well, I got much less on the Pistons than you did on the Wings because, quite frankly, I mean, what are we doing here? I'm not going to talk for 30 minutes about the Pistons, even though if I wanted to. I mean, come on, people can skip through shit if they don't want to hear it. So,
yeah, right. But move along.
I don't have much. I just wanted to give the Pistons a little bit of flowers because they did go, and you're going to laugh at this, but this is a true stat. They went 7-4 against the spread in February, and they won 3. Yeah. They won 3 games in February, and for a team that's only won 9 games all season, I mean, to win a 30 games in 1 month, albeit the shortest month of the year, even in a leap year, I just want to give the Pistons credit. That's all. And just some stats for you. I don't want to bore everyone with stats, but like, Cade this season, Collins has beat this drum all year, and I've been right there behind him. I mean, he's been beating it with a fucking sledgehammer. Cade Cunningham is great, and if you don't think so, you're not watching the same games. You need to get a new TV. You need to get your eyes checked. You need to get some new glasses, whatever the case may be. It's like updating your phone. You got to get a new phone every 3-4 years. You got to get some new glasses, new TV, whatever, because Cade's balling. He's putting up 23 points a game, 7.5 assists. And just for some perspective, Rabs, I know you're not a huge NBA guy, and the All-Star break kind of came and went, and that's a clown show, and that's a whole different can of worms. But just for perspective, those numbers Cade's putting up, 23 points, 7.5 assists, those are All-Star numbers if the team is any good. If the team is any good. I mean, Scotty Barnes, who was drafted a couple picks after Cade in that 2020, was it 21 draft, he's averaging 20 points and 6 assists. He was an all-star. The Raptors are not a great team, but they're better than the Pistons. Tyrese Maxey's averaging 26 points, 6 assists. I understand he's a better scorer. He's more dynamic. Plays for the Sixers, one of the most talked about teams in the East. Jalen Brunson, kind of like an unsung hero for the Knicks, an almost superstar. 27 points, 6.5 assists. Knicks are having a great season. So it's just kind of like he's in that ballpark. He doesn't get the love he deserves because the Pistons are so bad. And it's one of the biggest themes of this whole era, if you can even call it that, shout out Taylor Swift, is like the last 3-4 years, the Pistons have been so bad to the point where like some of these players are just getting buried. Like Cade's playing great. He stayed healthy this year. He's fun to watch, but the team itself isn't a draw because they lose every game by double digits. Now, that's kind of why I wanted to give some credit to their February stretch here, where they've actually started to cover the spread, be a little more competitive. Dare I say, win 2 games in a row, Rabs. But if nothing else, I did want to just spend a quick minute on this Bulls game because I was maybe a little too obnoxious about beating the Bulls, but I don't really think there is such a thing because
you were all over him on Twitter.
Well, I understand the Pistons suck and the Bulls really aren't that good either. I think they're like they're in the play-in picture where they're like in that 7 to 10 range, whatever. Fuck the Bulls. I hate the Bulls. I don't know, Rabs. I made a small list, and I'd love for you to chime in here. The teams that I love beating, like the teams that I get enjoyment, I get excitement, I feel warm inside when my team beats. It's Michigan Wolverines at the top of the list. I don't care if it's football or basketball. It's both. And then the Green Bay Packers are number 2. The Chicago Bears are number 3, and I put the Chicago Bulls right at number 4. Like I enjoy beating the Bulls more than I enjoy the Lions beating the Vikings. Like it's that big of a deal to me.
I would throw on that list too in no particular order. I love when the Red Wings beat the Maple Leafs.
Good one.
I love when the Tigers beat the Cleveland Guardians.
I had I words on my list
because I feel like they just like don't, and there's this weird rivalry between. I always feel like there's this weird rivalry between Detroit and Cleveland as two like overlooked cities that some people probably think are dog shit, and like both like the Browns and the Lions, 2 horrible franchises, and just like I don't know, I don't like being below Cleveland.
Again, of course, to my whole Cleveland soliloquy I was talking about before we started recording when you and I were just chopping it up, is it's like Cleveland puffs their chest out and they come back at us like, yeah, Midwest, this is Music City. We got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yeah, okay, well, we're Detroit Rock City. Plus, you don't even have a fucking hockey team. We're Hockey Town. Fuck you. All that stuff. So anyways, that's neither here nor there. I just that Bulls win fired me up to the point where it keeps me bought in. Like if they lose to the Bulls by 30, Rabs, as silly as this sounds, and they stay at 8 wins, not that moving to 8 wins to 9 wins per se keeps me bought in. It's more just like beating the Bulls that does something for me as a fan. Where it's like,
good, you deserve it.
Okay, this is why I watch the games, you know? I mean, this is why I sat down and watched the Pistons play the Bulls tonight. Even though the Pistons, this is the worst Pistons team of my lifetime, and that's saying a lot because they haven't been good in a long time, in a decade, but it reminds you that, like, yes, this is why I'm watching. And because I sit down to watch Rabs, I get to see guys like Cade Cunningham play great. I get to see Jalen Duren, who's a walking double-double. He's like 14 and 12. And I know Andre Drummond did the same thing, but eye test. Duren does it a lot differently. And the last point that I wanted to bring up on the Pistons is just I want to give some credit to Asar Thompson. And I know that anytime, look, if you want to hear our thoughts on the whole draft lottery and that process and the Pistons picking fifth, just rewind to July. I mean, Collins and I both went on rants about it. Pistons picked Asar Thompson. Obviously, his twin, Amen Thompson, went number 4. And Asar's having a better season. It's close, but like statistically, it's very close. But Asar's having the better season, and he has not missed a game, Rabs. Pistons have played 58 games. Asar Thompson has played
Best
58 games.
Availability.
So I just wanted to give him a little credit. His brother's played 20 less games than he has because he came into the season with an injury. I think it was an ankle or something. Not important. Just a couple Pistons headlines because we haven't recorded in a week. There was the Knicks debacle, beating the Bulls, which I love doing. Their success in February, and I did want to give not only Cade, but Asar Thompson a little credit. And the Pistons have tons of problems, and it would be disingenuous for me to just come on here and rip him to shreds without Collins here too, because he brings that other perspective. But that's all. The Pistons deserved at least 7 to 10 minutes of our time today, and that's about all I got.
So let me ask you this, because I believe there's probably an equal amount of games left in the Pistons season as the Red Wings, correct, or something similar?
Yeah, they both play 82 game seasons, and they're pretty synced up. Yes.
So where do we go from here? Because you're at a point now where the trade deadline has come and gone. So effectively, all the moves that you can and would have made for this season are kaput, and it's crazy to me, dude, how all these trades and then these signings, and it's every time someone comes in, it's now they're looking at a buyout for Muscala. I don't do you believe there is a method to the madness of what is going on with Troy Weaver? Or do you believe because to me, dude, honestly, it feels like Muscala walks into the arena one day and is like, "Hey, Troy, I'm going to need you to I'm done here." That's what it feels like all these players are doing. I just don't get it. And so I guess my 2-part question is there a method to the madness? And 2, what is the goal? Are you looking for this team to win games? Should they just continue to lose so they can get a draft pick? What is the outlook? Because obviously the playoffs are out of the question. Do you care? Are you looking for these young guys to build some continuity here and go win some games? Because I don't really know what the end goal is supposed to be, because they have a lot of work to do this offseason, Trent, because they are far, far from a competitive team, truly. And that's where I disagree with the friends of mine that are I actually think the Pistons have a good core. And Cade Cunningham's a great player. Jalen Duren's going to be great. Jaden Ivey's very talented and athletic. Not that he's a tremendous fit with this team, but they're so far away from being a real basketball team. What is the goal here down the stretch?
No, so I'm glad you brought this up, and I'll make this quick because I don't think anyone really. I shouldn't say no one cares. But like I said earlier, anyone can skip through if they don't want to listen to this. It is. I do not. Troy Weaver, to me, Rabs, lost all credibility this season. You're the worst team in the league. You absolutely butcher the trade deadline. You do you do nothing before the trade deadline in season except for acquire Kevin Knox. It made no sense. And I'll give you an example of you asked me if I believe in the method of the madness of Troy Weaver. So when he was, I remember, I think it was 3 years ago when the Lions, when the Pistons had, I think it was Nerlens Noel, Jahlil Okafor. There were a bunch of centers that were on the team, and it was why do we have this many centers? And I remember reading on Twitter, and James Edwards III, who does great work for The Athletic, they're all saying, trust in Troy. He's working the contracts. It's not about the depth chart right now. It's the contracts. That was when I believed in him, because that was 3 years ago. Now we're at this point where I 100% don't at all. I want him gone. I think he sucks. So to answer your question, I mean, it's kind of when you think about the Pistons, I wouldn't even go as far to say as I like their core. I like their young core. I like Cade. I like Asar. I like Jalen Duren. And then I like Marcus Sasser. I throw him in there for some credit. You guys know how I feel about Jaden Ivey. So it's just I don't even know if I can call 3 guys a core. You know what I mean? It's just
yeah.
It's just like a couple of young players alike. The Pistons are very far away. Just to answer your question, what's the answer? What's the future? What's the goal? Dude, you got to get ping pong ball luck. You got to make another big high pick. And then you got to roll into next season with what you should have rolled into this season with, which is let's go for it. Let's compete a little bit. Let's try to get off the schneid and stop being the doormat of the league and stop with this idea that like the ceiling is the play-in. Let's act as though the ceiling is you could win a playoff series if all things go right. You could be a 6 seed and get a good matchup against a 3 seed and maybe win a playoff series. That's what the goal should be. But of course, that's kicking the can way down the road, and Troy Weaver hates doing that. So that's all.
All right, fair enough.
Coward. He's a coward.
Coward. You were going to go to the Tiger spring training game today, but you have postponed your appearance till tomorrow.
Correct. I was going to go in Fort Myers today because it's like 10 minutes away from where I live. But absurdly, the tickets were like $60, and I'm just like I'm not doing that because I'm going up to Lakeland tomorrow to answer your question. So I'll enjoy that a lot more when I'm surrounded by a bunch of Tigers fans, not a bunch of Red Sox snowbirds, and that'll be more fun.
That could be tough. How far away is Lakeland?
It's like 2.5 hours, but I'm going to stay for the weekend because I'm staying. Miles and his girlfriend, Brooklyn, shout out. They're coming down for spring break. They're here. They're up in
that's
Orlando.
Awesome. What is it like? College spring break. I just saw my time hop, my pictures from Miami.
Oh, dude, I remember your Miami trip, and you came home, and you were like, "Wasn't that right before COVID?"
Yeah, I was sick when I came home. I was the first person to ever have COVID. I brought it back to the United States.
I bring this up all the time. But I just think it's hilarious. Like our first show after lockdown, because the school hadn't been shut down yet, but COVID had been declared. Like the NBA was shutting down, the tournament was canceled, all that stuff. That first show, we had some horrendous takes that aged horribly.
Well, the takes were not good off the bat, but I feel like looking back years now, and would you not to make this political? Do you think we overblew COVID? Did we blow that out of proportion as a whole?
Yes.
So that's what I mean.
The NCAA tournament should not have been canceled. If anything, just play it without fans. But you're right. I mean, we didn't know anything about it, so it was kind of just like, oh, okay. I mean, this is a big deal.
Yes, but Miami is. I know you love Miami too. It's like a different country. That place is fucking awesome.
Huge fan. I love Miami.
But
yes, I was going to go to the Tigers game today. Didn't end up going. I don't know if you have any Tigers takes or if we want to kind of hold off till we get RC back on. We got about a month until not opening day, but till our first game. And at Rabs, just to keep this short and sweet, I am so far in on this team. I think they're going to be great. Great's a strong word. I think they're going to be very good. It's going to be the most entertaining, the most watchable team. I think you've got a guy like Javi Baez that will start every day, and you'll actually be able to hide his deficiencies a little bit more because of these younger players taking a step. You sign a guy like Urshela. Did we talk about Gio Urshela or no?
No, I don't think we did. I think you were the one that's like, in typical fashion, there's a signing that happens immediately after you record a Motown Rundown.
Well, I think that's a good signing. I mean, it's only a 1-year deal, and it's a guy who hit 300 last year. He would have been the best hitter on the team.
Yep. Granted, I mean, I think his sample size last year I don't think he played that many games. But as you said, too, I think in his last 5 or 6 years, he's batted above 250 every single year. So, I mean, I guess this is a good way to approach the Tigers for today because I want to get your thoughts on it. And I know, again, there's still a month away and some change until we're playing real baseball. And they're doing these, it's a lot of split squad scrimmages and stuff with half the teams playing at one facility, half the teams playing at another one, playing 2 different teams. But I think for the sake of conversation, do you have any, how do I want to phrase this? Are you upset with the lack of activity from the Tigers in free agency? Do you feel like they should have gone out and tried to get a Cody Bellinger? Do you feel like they should have tried to spend money on a Matt Chapman? Do you feel like they should bring JD Martinez back? That seems to be what the vibe is, at least from a lot of these radio hosts locally of, they bring in a guy like Gio Urshela, but they couldn't go get Matt Chapman, or like, they signed Mark Canha, but they didn't want to spend for Cody Bellinger. Like, do you have any angst towards the lack of spending? Because I guess, and again, the reason why that's like the only thing I want to talk about today, unless you have something else, because there's so much that can happen. There's injuries that can happen. Obviously, the roster is going to get cut down more and more as time goes on. And so we can get into all of that stuff towards the end of March. But for right now, is free agency starting to really round out, and Cody Bellinger just got brought back to the Cubs. And as we can talk about Urshela, which I think, before I let you go, I think the Urshela signing was great because it's at least the guy that can play third base every day and is going to hit for contact. And I'd rather see him at third base than Matt Vierling, to be honest, because
he's actually a third baseman. Yes.
True. He's actually played the position for more than a year of his life. Yeah. So I don't like, do you have any angst towards Scott Harris for them not spending money?
If I do, it's based. I'm with you. I'm 30% angst, 70% confident, if that makes sense. Because I think the difference here, and you bring up the whole stopgap, and Rabs, I know any of our loyal listeners know damn well that anyone who is sick of the stopgap, it's you, Ryan Rabinowitz.
I can't stand it. Can't stand it.
But so yes, I could see how a Gio Urshela or a Matt Canha feels similar to a Josh Harrison, Jordy Mercer. You could come up with 100 of them over the last 5 years. Our boy Mercer. Bob Grossman. But the reason it feels different is at that time the young guys you were basically hoping to develop were like Victor Reyes, who I know you and I liked a lot, but you were also hoping for you're like Christian Stewart, Jacoby Jones. Those were the guys that you were like, okay, these guys just need to take a step, and the stopgap guys will fill in. Here's the difference. Now it's Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, Parker Meadows, real players. And again, that's no disrespect to the guys I just mentioned, but you know the difference, Rabs. You've watched baseball long enough, so that's kind of how I feel about it. And I guess the flip side is, yes, I would have loved to see the Tigers go spend money, but the dark side of the moon there, if you will, is a contract like Javi, where you just, let's go spend money. Let's go because damn well it's not Scott Harris. It's Chris Ilitch. He's the one that's like, we're not going to shell out the money for, like you said, a JD Martinez or something like that. Let's go get the B+ version of that, the half-baked version of that on the market. So I guess I agree with you. I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit of I like the younger guys that are waiting in the wings a little more. And I also would be a little more afraid they'd throw a bunch of money at someone who I shouldn't say doesn't deserve it, but someone who probably isn't worth it. Is that fair? I don't know. I feel very confident in where this team is. And yes, I would have loved to make a move or two more, but I can't complain thus far. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of that catch-22 because the Tigers are in a weird position where I feel like it would be different if this was year one of Torkelson, Green, Parker Meadows. Essentially, it is Parker Meadows' first year. But I feel like the Tigers have a lot of young players that have at least gotten their feet wet to now it's like, okay, it's go time. What do we have here? I still just feel like there's a feeling out period that the Tigers are waiting for of what do we have in this guy? What do we have here? What are we doing here? What is Colt Keith going to look like? So there's a certain element of having to play the game of a guy like Gio Urshela, who's coming here on a 1-year, $1.5 million contract, is probably not going to be butthurt if he's playing every other day with having a guy like, I know Colt Keith is supposed to play second base. I keep forgetting the guy they're trying to play at third. I don't know why I can't remember his name. But whatever, throw in who you want, even if it's a Zach McKinstry, just for the sake of conversation, versus if you have a Matt Chapman playing third base or you're paying $20 million a year. He's playing every day at third no matter what, and you're probably not looking at anyone else taking playing time away from him. So I get that you have to do that. Cody Bellinger, like that, and like he
That would have done nothing for me. Just for the record, that would have done nothing for me.
He just seems like the quintessential guy that just none of the baseball nerds like, because I think he swings and misses a ton, and I can't stand his swing, to be honest. It's tough to watch, but
also you don't need that position at all.
Yeah, I don't disagree. So I don't know. I mean, I do kind of get the vibe, and I'll tell you, man, like I am going to be Scott Harris and AJ Hinch sometimes like get on my nerves a bit. Of They give the vibe off like they think they're the two smartest guys in the room all the time. And like
Okay. How about this? I'll give you that on Hinch. Also, by the way, were you referring to Ryan Kreidler earlier with third base?
Maybe, but I feel like where does Justin Henry Malloy play? Is he an outfielder now?
Yeah, I don't know, but either way, your point is well taken. Like they don't really seem to have
this
a
is
plan
again
with that
like
guy.
Cole Keith, Ryan Kreidler, Justin Henry Malloy, Jace Young. Like Jace Young might be the guy I'm thinking of that they're going to try to play at third. Remember when they were talking about having Torque at third?
Oh my God, yeah. Anyways, I didn't mean to derail you. I heard what you were saying, but I was off camera for a second, so I wanted to throw that in there. But dude, I'm with you. You were talking about Hinch and Harris being the smartest guy in the. Sorry.
Yeah, but I get that. I do get that little bit of feeling from them of like, we like our guys, we're developing guys. Like it's all numbers, dude. It is all numbers with this team, which I can't stand. Like I don't view baseball that way, and I think that you know that, and Collins knows that too. And Collins gets like weirdly angry at me because he's like, "Oh, well, you're just the guy. There you go, throw the Tigers hat on. You're just the guy."
Well, I'm doing the AJ Hinch. I'm gonna just stick my nose up in the air and just
it's seriously, and like
it's like, dude, can you have a winning month of April one time, please, before we start to just crown you?
They have to win the division this year. Like I just don't. What are we waiting for? Like I don't understand. Like Minnesota has gotten no better. What didn't they? And they might have just traded for an outfielder, Margot from Texas, but.
Well, either way, yes. Cleveland got worse last season. Chicago's not what they used to be.
What are we waiting? Seriously, what are we waiting for? I don't
Rabs, I'm with you, and I don't mean to cut you off, but we have this star because it would be. I mean, he is going to have some takes. I feel like he's almost going to like put us on his back this Tigers preseason whenever we do the whole preview. But I'm with you. Like, what are we waiting for?
So I don't know. I mean, I think I'm more than happy to roll in with this roster, I guess is what I'm saying. Whatever they decide to do with, I assume Colt Keith is going to start the year up with the big club. I don't anticipate any more big signings to come out of this. Like I am fine with whoever they roll with, and I'm excited to watch. I truly am. But like, I'm not going to sit here and watch Spencer Torkelson bat 220 again for the first 4 months of the season. I'm not going to do it.
You won't. I don't think you will.
That's fine. That's fine. But
Rabs, I am very confident. I'm drinking the orange Kool-Aid. All we did was we slid over. We had the Honolulu blue Kool-Aid. Now I get the orange Kool-Aid.
Dude, I'm excited. You're starting to get some good weather here in Michigan. Like I'm excited for baseball. Don't get me wrong. I got to get the softball mitt out. We're probably going to get the season going again for the bench warmers, but I'm excited, man. I am. I just I want to see they have to just they have to fucking win. That's just the bottom line. That's where it begins and ends. Like there is no excuse for them not to win the division this year.
We'll do a whole preview, like I said, with RC later. We'll do preseason, over-unders, all that good stuff. But I want to ask you real quick before I have a rapid fire leap year little fun segment.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, who's going to be your Bob Grossman this year that you just can't stand watching every day?
That's a great question. Who is going to be my Bob Grossman? I'm going to tell you right now, dude, off the top of my – first of all, fuck. Hang on, let me think about this.
Because, dude, you are notoriously, get off my lawn Tigers fan.
Yeah, I'm going to
get off my lawn sports fan, but the Tigers in particular with the way AJ Hinch manages this team, which is paint by numbers, analytics, see what the fax machine prints out at you. So who's your guy this year that you're going to hate?
First of all, Trey Wingenter, however you pronounce his name, who's kind of fat, like a fat Spicoli. If he makes this team, I won't be able to watch when he's on the mound. He's awful. I'm gonna give Mark Canna every single chance I can because I just feel like I feel like a lot of people are gonna be on Mark Canna's case because he was like, Frank the Tank, Mark can't hit, whatever. I think my Bob Grossman this year is probably going to be Andy Ibanez because I just feel like they're going to let him play way too much. And also, it's going to be Carson Kelly because there's just no reason why Jake Rogers shouldn't play every single day. Like I don't care to watch Carson Kelly, but I feel like he'll show up in some big moments. But that's probably it. Javi Baez, they have to move on from Javi if he's bad this year.
Well, yes. And Rabs, this is a bigger narrative. And again, it sucks Ryan Collins isn't here because I know that he feels some type of way about Javi. I love Javi.
I love Javi too, dude. I'm the only guy that wears the Motor City Mago shirt in town.
It's like one of the weird. It's one of the strange hills that I die on as a Detroit sports fan. Like I don't really know why I like Javi. I just do. I think the team has been worse, and if the team was better, then he would kind of slide in and be fine, and you would deal with his lack of production on offense because the morale is high and it's a long season, and he'll be playing well at short, whatever. It's neither here nor there. We can move on. I do want to ask you. I got three just quick questions. So in honor of it is Leap Day. It is February 29th. This is like the Olympics. It's like the World Cup. It only happens once every 4 years. So we got to lean into this a little bit. And in the spirit of our morning show this morning, we put out a poll question. We asked our audience. I think we put up like 4 NFL teams. We said which one makes the biggest leap in 2024, and the options were like the Bears, the Bengals, the Chargers. I forget the 4th team, but not important. So, Rabs, I got 3 questions for you in that vein. Okay. 2 Tigers questions, 1 Lions question, so we can squeeze the Lions in. Who makes the biggest leap this season for the Tigers on the mound? Tarek Skubal, who had a really good year last year, Casey Mize, who's coming off injury, or Matt Manning, who struggled? Who makes the biggest leap relative to where they were last season?
I think my Matt Manning stock is probably as low as it's ever been. And I do like Matt Manning. I like my expectations for him are nothing. And I kind of feel the same way about Casey Mize because I don't know. I know guys can come back from Tommy John now, and it sounds like Casey Mize is throwing hard. And I want nothing more than for him to be like incredible to the point where he's like a number 1, number 2 guy. I think Tarek Skubal he's already in preseason talks for Cy Young. So I think that Skubal is a true Erod's out of the way. You're our number 1. Just stay healthy and deal. Like I love his stuff. I love the way he commands the mound. I love his attitude. I think he always seems to stay poised. So I don't be surprised if he's starting to turn some heads here in the league as being a Cy Young candidate. So I would say Tarek Skubal.
Okay, that's a good answer. I like the way you attacked that. I guess I thought of it a little differently, like relative to where they were last season. I think Manning had such like a down year, left so much to be desired that I think even if he comes back around the season as like your 3rd guy and he's like solid,
I just don't see it, dude. That's the thing. That's where
that's okay.
I just don't see it. And it's like, Mize, I guess, compared to like if he can stay healthy, like that's a leap. But I do think that Skubal has like that extra gear of just like mowing people down and being truly dominant. So I'm comfortable with that. I'm locking it in.
I do not disagree. Okay, one more Tigers one for you. Spencer Torkelson, Riley Green. Who makes the bigger leap?
Oh my God. I feel like
for better or worse, just to give context, like those guys are going to get talked about in the same sentence for the next 5-6 years,
Yeah, and I think that Riley Green, like to me, I have the expectation already of he's going to hit 275 to 300 and be on base all the time, and maybe the power numbers get a little bit better. So I'm going to say, and I'm hopeful, and I'm just more so maybe not so much a confidence thing, but just manifesting it. I think Spencer Torkelson is going to take the biggest jump because A, he has to, and B, he has more room to jump than Riley Green does. Like there's nothing about Riley Green's game. Maybe in some spurts, the strikeouts were a little bit concerning, and I don't need him breaking his legs in right field this year. But I just think that Spencer Torkelson, like, and dude, that's what I mean when I say, like, when you talk about baseball these days, and it's all about launch angle and exit velocity. I don't give a shit, dude, because Spencer Torkelson's swing is largely broke, in my opinion. Like, when he makes contact, it's hard. I get it, and like, that's great that he hits a lot of balls hard. But at a certain point, dude, like, I just need you on base. Like, I don't need you hitting. If it's really too much for you to hit 30 home runs a year, you're going to strike out a million times and bat 220, like, just get on base, So I would hope he takes a leap. I think defensively, he's been coming around a bit. Collins always disagrees that he thinks he's like a really good defender. I don't, but I think defensively he'll be a bit better and more comfortable over there at first, but I have to imagine the bat is going to turn on. I cannot have you bat 220 again this year. Like, I just can't.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you for the sole reason that, like, he has more room to leap. Like, he has more runway on the tarmac.
More leap space. Yeah,
because Riley Green was a lot better last.
A lot
year.
of leap space.
Kind of what you're working with. Last one to wrap this little fun, spirited segment. Whatever. Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta. Now, here's the reason I bring this up to you. Is Jahmyr Gibbs kind of split carries with Montgomery. You expect the same to be next year, right? But, like, Sam Laporta was like a top 3 tight end in the league, and he was only a rookie. So who makes a bigger leap? Does Montgomery hold Gibbs back a tad, or does Sam Laporta just completely run through that brick wall and he's like, Travis Kelce, you're old. George Kittle, you're old. I'm here. I'm the best tight end in the NFL.
I just think that Sam Laporta had such a good year as a rookie that, like, I don't know what it would look like for him to take a leap. Like, is it even possible? So I would just have to say by default, I think, remember beginning of the year, the Lions really weren't using Jahmyr Gibbs all that much, and we were kind of looking at each other like, what's the problem here? So I feel like with him having a year under his belt, I can see him being more of a staple in the offense to where truly, David Montgomery has been tremendous, but also, we have to take into consideration the lifespan of running backs, and granted, knock on wood, he did a great job of staying healthy this year, which he never does. So I just think they'll use Jahmyr Gibbs more, and I just think he'll be a bit more impactful than maybe he was in totality. So, truthfully, I think a Gibbs jump is the best thing for this team. Like, Sam Laporta is just steady Eddie, but I think a Gibbs jump is probably the most likely in my eyes, and I think will be truly the best thing possible for these guys.
Love it. Don't disagree. I think you're the same. I think you're spot on. I think Sam Laporta walked into this league ready to be a pro. He's going to be a top 3 tight end for the next, I don't want to get overzealous here, probably, 5 years? He'll probably be he'll be in that conversation. Like, he'll be a top 5 guy as long as he doesn't get hurt. Production-wise, all he does is get open. He catches everything. He's strong. He blocks well, so whatever. Give me Jahmyr. That's all, Rabs. Happy Leap Day.
Happy Leap Day. I'm going to see Dune 2 tonight with my brother. 10:30 p.m. showing. 3-hour movie.
Did you see Dune 1?
Yeah, I saw. Did you see Dune 1?
No, I didn't. But I should have, because I actually had a lot of friends that did, and they loved it.
I feel like you would like Dune 1. It's like, I don't know. It depends on who you ask, because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't get it. It's so like.
Well, that's like our great buddy, our comrade, Ryan Collins. He's never seen Star Wars.
Yeah, and I just like the argument of like, oh, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. Like, okay, like, I get it. Like, it's not based on a true story. Like, so if that's the angle you're going to come at it from, but apparently it got great ratings. So I'm going to hit the gym, not a big deal. And then I'm going to watch the Wings at 7. And then I got a 10:30 kickoff for Dune 2. And I'll be home at about 2:00 in the morning. So.
All right. Well, have fun. I wish you well. That'll be great.
What's the weather? What do you got weather-wise right now? No, nothing good?
I spent an hour and a half at the pool today. It is local in Florida, 82 degrees right now, as the sun is on its way down.
When you say the pool, is it like your apartment complex Plex.
Yeah, my apartment complex. I'm not saying this to like. I'm not saying this to like sound like I'm bragging or anything, because actually, relative to the area, it's a dump that I live in. But it's like spring break. Think of it like that. Like you've got these buildings, and then you've got in the middle of all the buildings, you've got like a pool that like
Yeah,
people go use, and a hot tub and a fireplace, all that stuff. So yeah,
that's
I was
awesome.
there.
I have to imagine that every complex has to have a pool because it gets hot. But
Most of them do. Most of them do. Here's the thing,
outstanding.
Rabs, though. Here's the funny thing. Spin zone. People here bitch because our pool isn't heated. And I'm like, being from
Oh,
Michigan, I'm like, dude, this feels amazing to me. I can
yeah. I
jump
don't
into
need the
I
heated
don't,
pool.
yes, exactly.
I don't
And it's
need
only
the
getting warmer at this point. I mean, we turn the
yeah,
corner now. It's like about to be March, and like it's
yep.
only going up. It's gonna be like 90 degrees in 2 months. I don't need a heated
We
pool.
we had like a great 70 and sunny day 2 days ago, and now it's 35 degrees outside. So we're getting there slowly but surely. I would like
Hey,
to
I
go to
feel for you
opening
guys.
day this year for the Tigers, but I don't. Those tickets are super expensive. I've got a
Yeah.
nice like dugout jacket I gotta wear one of these days out there, but who knows?
I will say real quickly before we wrap things up, like I have missed. There's a couple things I've missed, and I'm not saying it's better, but like I have definitely missed the Christmas was the first one because I was down here and there was no snow, and I talked about that on this show, and I got a lot of shit
Yep.
for it. But like there was no snow and no like lights. Like you don't really see that down here. You do occasionally, but then
Yeah.
also I will say this too though, Rabs. Like March is my favorite month in Michigan. It's the best because you got March Madness, baseball starts, things
March is
warm up. You
reading month.
you turn that corner to where it's like it's not 30 degrees every day, it's 45 or it's 50. And
Yeah, and that's all you
if you're
need.
crazy
Yeah.
like me in high school, used to wear like shorts to school when it turned
Yeah.
47
It's
degrees. And
it's all you need.
it's the and you're also getting towards the end of the school year. Like March was phenomenal in high school, and I do really, really, really miss that because down here you don't get that. You don't appreciate it as much, I should say,
Yeah.
because you don't feel the change.
March and April too is peak like East Lansing. If it's above 40 to 45 degrees, people are outside playing like beer die
Yes, yes,
and like not going to class. So that's I definitely miss that too. That's one thing too. When I get settled into a new place here, like I'm gonna be hosting some get-togethers on the weekends. Hey, it's 60 degrees outside. Let's just drink beers all day. How's
yeah,
that
dude.
sound?
God, I miss that. And you catch a lug nuts game like once a week. Just head on
Yep.
down for the sake of
Solid
it.
Keystones. That's all good. It's all good stuff. Good times. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up here for this episode of the Motown Rundown for Trent Bally and in spirit, Ryan Collins. I am Ryan Rabinowitz. We're on YouTube, guys, at Motown Rundown. All of the episodes, the recordings of the episodes, so you can see our faces are on there. Also on Spotify exclusively for the time being. Just search us up. You can follow the show and click that little bell thing so you get notified when we post every single week. Twitter at Motown_Rundown. Facebook at the Motown Rundown page. That's going to be all for us here today. Thank you for listening. We love you guys. We'll see you next week.